everybody, DeathsStalker here. So you can see by the title, we are talking about Marc Marquez and all the haters and spice on the internet. So, little backstory, if you're not aware, Marc Marquez a couple weeks ago broke his arm in a massive crash at Jerez. And on the Tuesday, he went to Barcelona, went to the doctor, and they plated it. And the doctors said the operation went very well, there's no complications, yada yada yada, doctor talk. Anyways, Marc was feeling pretty good and talked to his doctor and about possibly trying to race that weekend, the second Jerez race. And the doctor didn't say no, and Marc performed a few things, did a few tests for the doctor, and the doctor didn't really say, yeah, you shouldn't do it. And so Marc then contacted Honda, and Honda hadn't really expected him to show up, so they had put his bike away and disassembled the box, which is what they call the pit area where they work on the race bikes. And basically the agreement between Honda and dust here, wow. The agreement between Honda and him was that he was going to sit out the Friday practice, which he did, and run on Saturday because they already had the setup. They were racing the same track just a week later, and he was going to do some practice, see how he felt, and if he felt okay, he'd do some more, and anytime something didn't feel right, he'd stop. So what happened was he went out in the Saturday practice, and his times were actually, for a guy with a freshly plated broken arm, were pretty darn good. Like, you figure his times came in around the a half a second to a second off, and that's pretty much where he was. And he ran consistent times, and went out for free practice 4, ran a couple laps, and then he pulled in, and they went to see how, I guess he was feeling something not quite right. He actually explained later he was getting some swelling in the elbow where of his broken arm. So they checked it all out, and he said, well, I'm going to go out for qualifying, and I'll pull out, and if I don't like what's going on, I'm just going to pull right off. And that's literally what he did. So he withdrew from the race, and there was a ton of spice that came in saying he shouldn't race, blah blah blah, doctors, and they should stop him and all that sort of stuff. And he actually had a pretty involved medical test. I think he actually has it on his YouTube channel. I'm gonna link it here if it is there. I know it's on Instagram. If you follow Marc Marquez 93 on Instagram, he posts videos of his workouts and stuff, and fitness routine, and riding his dirt track bikes, etc., etc. So you can see the guy he's always riding and stuff. So he had to pass a test, and he passed it. Well then, just making sure I'm not going to get run into. So then what happened was, they're on the weeks off, and he was working out, and then all of a sudden something happened, and he was opening a door on his sliding glass door of his house. He has like one of those big wall-to-wall door window things, and apparently when he was pulling the handle, he felt something, and his arm started to hurt immediately. And what happened was the titanium plate broke, so he had to go back to surgery, get a new plate fitted, and he's now missing another 3 races minimum before he's going to be coming back. And the haters were going again about, racers, yada yada yada, stop them, should know better, and all that stuff. Well, so what I'm going to talk about now, as someone who is a former racer, I raced 250 Grand Prix, not at the world level, but at the national level. And I have raced with people who went on to race 500 and 250 Grand Prix machines at the national level in North America, who went off to race bikes in Europe. So I pretty much know the mentality, and I know sort of what's going on. And the interesting thing about it is the top racers down to the little club racer pretty much have the same mentality. If they want to race, they want to race. Now the professionals are a little more circumspect. They want to race, but they also know they have to maintain fitness and do a bunch of other stuff to make their racing a lot, their racing career last as long as possible, which means sometimes getting surgeries and so forth. Now the interesting thing is, when I was racing, I was actually one of the more fit guys racing. There was a lot of guys who I raced with who, and I'm not making this up, literally had their pre-race cigarette on the starting grid before they went to race. And you know, there was guys who were drinking the night before and they were so hungover they could barely see before they went racing. That's the era I raced in. And I was working out 7 days a week, almost 365 days a year, like, except for the times I was on the racetrack, or if it was a holiday because the fitness clubs were closed, I was working out. And I raced injured too. I had a crash. I actually separated my shoulder, and I ended up racing that race. In fact, I raced the rest of the season with a separated shoulder because I was in such good shape. My shoulder, the muscles were actually holding everything in there quite well. Other guys would, well, I'll tell you, we had a guy, his name was Crazy Frank. I can't remember what his last name was. He was originally from the Czech Republic. Great guy, loved to race, and I mean loved to race. He broke his leg on a crash on the Friday at the racetrack, went to the local hospital, and yeah, they broke his leg, they put a cast on it. He then came back and went out on the Saturday to go practice, found the cast was interfering with the ability for him to use his brake on his bike. So he cut the cast off. He cut the cast off, went out for practice, went out for qualifying, went back to the hospital, had the cast refitted after all that, and then Sunday morning he cut it off again. That's racers. Racers have been known, you get a lot of injuries that are pretty common: broken scaphoids, broken collarbones, separated shoulders, you know, broken arms and legs, etc. But you also tend to get your little finger here damaged. Now, if you notice my gloves here, you see the tie down in between the fingers of the gloves? That is something that the glove makers are doing, and the racing gloves all have that now, is because when you hit the ground, your hand spreads out, and that little finger has very little support, and it tends to get broken and cut up and whatnot, and causes a whole heck of a lot of problems. And prior to my day, it wasn't so much in my day, but in the 60s and 70s, a lot of racers would just, instead of having to deal with that finger healing, would have it amputated. So again, that is racers. Now, medical technology has changed leap years from when I was racing. Like, the titanium plates didn't really exist in the like in where I'm from. The healthcare really didn't have sports med like they have it nowadays. But all these guys are racing now. They have sport med doctors. They have specialists that are highly recommended for all the fitness and ailments that racers have. They have nutritionists. They have their own physiotherapists. They have personal trainers to help them in shape. Some of them have rider coaches. So it's a whole different level of riding skill. and support. So the riders are a lot healthier than, well, that was a nice bug. The riders are a lot healthier now than when I was racing. And the interesting thing is that these guys are starting racing at a younger age. So they have like someone like Marc Marquez, Fabio Quartararo, and whatnot. They literally have been like they're in their lower 20s to mid 20s, and they've been racing for 15 years. Some of them even longer. Like I know, I think Paul Espargo said he first rode a mini bike at 4 years old. I don't even think I was riding a pedal bike back then. Probably because my family couldn't afford it, but that's just, you know, what was going on. So you can sort of see how things have changed between the riders and whatnot. So when they say that these guys shouldn't race and whatnot, I remember one guy saying that if a rider has to visit the hospital, he should have to wait 7 days before he's allowed to ride again. And it's like, well, you do stuff like that, you're going to encourage people not to go to the hospital, to not to go to the clinic if they have a problem. Because if they have to go to a clinic, they know they can't ride. So it sort of like defeats the whole purpose of having them take care of themselves. And it just, you know, it's a lot of these, you know, the things you sort of see on the news. It's like, well, why didn't the cop just shoot the gun out of the criminal's hand? And it's like, well, have you ever tried to shoot a gun? If you ever tried to shoot a handgun, you realize how hard that is. Like, it works really well in the movies, not so well on in real life. And it's the same thing with racing. It's like, you know, what you think is simple and straightforward is not the same. The competition, these guys, especially at this level, they have a very short career span. Valentino Rossi is actually the exception of the rule. You have most of the guys, by the time they hit their early 30s, they're at the end of their career. Like the factory rides are gone. They're riding, you know, second level motorcycles, or they're moving from Grand Prix to maybe super bikes, or returning back to their national series. There's a lot of former Grand Prix racers that have actually gone to the United States to ride, because apparently there's a lot of money to ride motorcycles in the American road racing series. Like back in the 80s and 90s, there was tons of money. Not like that anymore, but it's still better than racing some of the smaller national series in some countries. So these guys have to take advantage of everything they can to make their money while they can. So sometimes they will sacrifice a chance of further injury because they know the clock is ticking. But these aren't people who don't understand the risks. They know the risks. They've been around them more than long enough to see what happens and what can happen and go wrong. So like I said in the thumbnail, was that, you know, his limit is not your limit. His limit is a lot higher than most people. So let me know what you think.